Hello everyone, the Fuzz is here. Seems like it's been a very long time since I've decided to share my opinion on Spellweaver, but I had to do it because I went on the forums, and the first topic I saw was something I never thought I'd see. It's IFCO asking the community in a poll, should the life win condition be removed? Now, I've put the link in the description if you want to read it. It's a fascinating read. And, wow, I never thought I'd see it. Now, I'll start by saying I immediately hit yes. I didn't really think about it very much. I just said, yeah, sure, let's remove the 40 life gain condition. And then I started reading the comments, and almost unanimously, almost everyone is saying, don't remove it, you will break the game, or you're gonna remove something that's really cool about the game. And I was taken aback a little bit, and I started to think, okay, do I really want this thing removed, or is there another reason why I said yes? Now, the 4 cards I have here are going to be examples of good way to gain life and bad way to gain life. We'll get to those in a little bit. So just quickly scrolling through, there's some very interesting arguments people are giving. Laurential says that it'll remove an interesting aspect of the game. And you know what? I'm actually inclined to agree. So why did I vote yes? We'll get to that as well. One suggestion that's been around was, of course, to why not just make it 50 life? Why not start at 25 life and make the win condition 50 life, right? Well, we've tried that, and actually it turned out to be bad for the game. However, and this is where my own personal little insight comes in, I think it's bad for reasons that are much deeper in the game than just on the surface. And this is something that probably it kind of addresses some more core issues with Spellweaver as to why is it that a 25 life player with newer decks cannot compete with anyone else. And the short version of that is basically with 5 extra health, it's easier to stabilize for everyone. And because there is no mana limit in the game, control decks are able to play several powerful cards in a row, way more than they should. And a newer player just has no way to counter that. Also, there aren't really any really powerful value common or uncommon cards you could play. See, the idea of rares and epics is they're supposed to be interesting to play and a little bit challenging. Dark Portal is a great example of an epic card. But if you just want to play, you know, if you just have some commons, if you're looking to craft a big common card, like, what do you go for? Descendant of Divinity is about the only thing that comes to mind. We need some kind of a 5 mana creature that's like a 7/7, or something like a 5/5 that deals like 3 damage or something. Just a strong card that you can play that a new player could put into their deck and be able to, like, somewhat compete. Now, there's loads of other problems, but again, I'll save that for a separate video. Anyways, back to the life discussion. I'm actually just quickly scrolling through these. Even Blackheart, one of the most infamous, in a bad way, players, actually stepped in to defend the life gain condition. Now that should tell you, this is serious. People are taking this seriously. So yeah, that's pretty much everybody is saying that let's not remove it. It's really not the problem. And I started thinking, and I'm inclined to agree. The life win condition itself is not the problem. It exists in order to create another way for games to end. If you have life-bound creatures and your opponent has some creatures and you guys are constantly trading, then you'll eventually build up your life and you will eventually win, so that you don't have situations where you have 2 players sitting at like 60 HP each and nobody can win anymore. So I know Magic the Gathering had this problem. I remember having a game where I had 10 million life. Seems fair, right? And I mean, really, once you get past like 100, you don't even have to block, because you're just never gonna die. So I realize that the problem, and this is what these 4 cards are here for, is how you got the 40 life. See, let's start with Word of Grace. Word of Grace, the problem with this card was it could give you a lot of life very quickly, especially when reflected. So you were in a situation where maybe the board state is marginal, maybe it's an even game, and then boom, 2 words of grace, and suddenly your opponent has 40 life. Right? That's bullshit, right? I think everybody would agree with that. Now you compare Antriel. Now that's different. Yes, she gives everything life-bound, but you have to have a board to work. It's a much more interactive way to gain life, and you do actually have to do a little bit of work. I mean, it's a 4-mana, 4-aspect card. It better have a ridiculous effect. So Antriel, that's a good way to gain life, even though you could, in theory, play an Antriel and swing with a huge board and win the game through life. But that doesn't seem to be that unreasonable. I mean, cards like this are supposed to have a big impact. Now, what about this one? Probably my most hated card in the game. This is another example of bad way to gain life. It just sits there and gains you life with almost no input. You do have to spend mana, but it's not that hard. Cataclysm costs 6 mana, right? So with Scatterdoor's Bidding, you're going to easily gain like 5 or 6 mana every turn, 6 life every turn. And like, that's ridiculous. And especially because if your opponent tries to build up a board, you just sweep his board with Cataclysm, you gain back a bunch of life, then he tries to rebuild the board, then you gain more life. It's just an impossible race. And yeah, you play Scatterdoor's Bidding and you just sit there. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to work for it at all. That's a problem. Now, passive life gain might be okay, but like no more than 1 life per turn. Like 5 life per turn, that's completely ridiculous. You take a look at Vampirism, that's a better example of life gain, because just like Antriel, it requires a board. If played by itself, it doesn't even do anything. But once you can attack with some creatures, you can actually really get some value out of it. So that's the kind of life gain we want. I think if we had more cards like this and less of those instantly gain a bunch of life, people wouldn't even complain about it. And I kind of agree. Now, there was one other interesting suggestion, which was that gaining 40 life shouldn't instantly end the game, and it should be something like a reverse burn, where the more life you have, the more life they lose. That could work, I guess, but I think it could even be okay with just 40 life, you win the game, or I think a compromise, if you reach 40 life and your opponent doesn't reduce your life below 40 by the end of his next turn, then you win the game. That seems fair to me, right? And this way your opponent would have one more chance. And, of course, we have to remove these big life boost cards. I think there wouldn't be a problem. It does mean we have to be very careful in the future designing these life gain cards, because Word of Grace, which is a pretty innocent looking card, like when I first saw it, I didn't really care much about it, but then when you realized how much life you can gain off of it, even without playing 1-turn heal decks, back in the day before it was nerfed, you could casually gain like 10 life. So you start at 20, you play 2 Words of Graces at 5 aspects, you win. Yeah, that can happen. So it's kind of a shame that we basically can't have big healing effects like that. Or if they exist, they'd have to be more expensive. So my final conclusion is that no, we do not have to remove the win condition, but something should be done, definitely. And I would say mostly focus on the cards like Scatterdoor's Bidding, and redesign them and don't make cards like that anymore, and focus on more interactive ways to gain life. And I think life-bound creatures are some of the best ways to do it. The only other example I can think of is Namir. When he comes in, you gain like 1 life for every priest you control. That's pretty cool too. You never gain that much life, but you always get at least 1, and if you have a lot of priests, you could get 5. But, you know, having 5 priests on the board is a lot harder than just playing a Scatterdoor's Bidding and spending 10 mana. So that's a difference. So that's my 2 cents. I'm actually kind of shocked that I read the arguments and I just changed my mind. I'm gonna take back my vote and go back for no, because you guys were right when you were defending the win condition. It isn't the problem. And it's nice when, after being in a game for so long, you can just have your mind changed like that after realizing, you know what, I was completely wrong. I was complaining about the wrong things. Now, as I was mentioning, there are other aspects in the game that need to be a little bit tuned, like the one I mentioned with the newer players struggling against the 25 life. I want to go deeper into this, like more than what I talked about, but that's gonna go in the next video where I want to talk about all the things I would do differently and I would change in the game if I had the power, and why. And some of these will be repeats. Divine Offering, you know, we've discussed this, but a little bit of reminder. But there's more than that. It has to do with the cards themselves too. But anyways, I'm not gonna put it in here because it'll be like a 30-minute long video. This was just my 2 cents on the life win condition. Let's keep it in the game. I think it's good. Having another way to play the game is fine as long as it is interactive. So on a tangent, while we're talking about alternate win conditions, milling is another interesting way to play the game where you win a little bit differently. Now, I have a bigger problem with milling because I really hate the fact that you instantly lose the game when you run out of cards. That's really anticlimactic because the milling effects are quite powerful. So the simple solution to milling is don't lose the game when you run out of cards. You just start taking, like, just take Hearthstone's idea of fatigue damage. That's a great idea. That is a really great idea. There's no reason why we can't use it. You just take more and more damage as the game goes. And this also prevents games from dragging out. Now, yes, currently there is a problem where with Divine Offering, you can, like, stall forever. And it's not just that. With cards like Innkeeper and Vulture, you can actually recycle. So it's possible to basically go infinite. If you have 2 Vultures in your deck, you can just never run out of cards. So Divine Offering, stopping milling is just one small part of it. But yeah, that should be addressed as well. So yeah, what I would do for milling while we're talking about alternate win conditions, just introduce fatigue damage. Let us play out our 60 cards. Don't let us lose the game immediately. And for mill decks, let's focus on more cards like the Deathbound Incarnate and Azure, ones that benefit when your opponent's cards are milled. See, now that's the proper way to play the game. I think those 2 cards are great. I want to see more of those. And less cards like Flash of Delirium, which is just passively mill cards. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyways, it's been fun to hear myself talk for a few minutes. I know it's been a long time since I made a video. I kind of haven't found an appropriate topic, really. But this, now this was a surprise. And I wonder if there's any other topics that the developers want to put up, like, should Divine Offering be changed? I mean, we used to think they would never even consider it, but they just posted a topic about should we change one of our basic win conditions. Anything is possible. The devs are opening up their minds. I certainly hope they continue to do so because there is a vast wealth of ideas in the community. I mean, there are players much smarter than myself playing Spellweaver and thinking of ideas. They should be listened to. These guys are experienced. You know, I think together, the developers and the community could make a better game than just developers themselves, because there's only a few of them, and they're only human, and, you know, they're gonna make some mistakes, no matter how hard they try. That's just the reality of things. Anyways, for real now, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, or better yet, just post your opinions in the forum. That's better, because more people will see it. And I'll see you guys next time. It won't be a month, I promise. Seems fair. That was for you, Dobrycy.